You've read the books. You know you're supposed to buy low and sell high. You know you shouldn't let your emotions control your trades. But the moment you enter the market, you feel that familiar spike of fear or that rush of greed. And just like that, you abandon your plan and take a catastrophic loss. Here is the secret. Fear and greed are not feelings you conquer. They are signals you learn to interpret. They are the natural, unavoidable psychological side effects of dealing with uncertainty and money. This video is not about suppressing those emotions. It's about recognizing the 4 invisible psychological triggers that convert these normal feelings into destructive, account-killing actions. We are going to expose these triggers so you can finally neutralize them. Mastering this framework is the only way to move from being an emotional gambler to a cold, calculating market operator. The first invisible trigger is the illusion of certainty. This trigger is the root of most of your fear. The lie is, you believe that if you just do enough research, if you find the perfect indicator or pattern, you can know with 100% certainty what the market will do next. The psychological reality is, trading is a game of probability, not certainty. Any single trade is a random event, regardless of how perfect the setup looks. When you operate with the illusion of certainty, any move against your position, even a small pullback, is interpreted by your brain as a catastrophic failure of your analysis. This triggers intense fear, causing you to take early exits or move your stops. Here's the fix: the any outcome acceptance. You must internalize the core truth. Anything can happen. The moment you place a trade, you must surrender the need to be right. Here's an actionable tool. Before you hit the entry button, look at your stop loss and verbally state, "I fully accept the maximum loss defined by this stop loss. This trade has a probability of success, but I accept that this one single event could fail, and that is okay." This simple act mentally detaches your identity from the trade's outcome. The fear shrinks because the worst-case scenario is already accepted. The second trigger is the subtle killer known as the "just this once" mindset. This is the ignition switch for pure greed. The lie is, you've had a few winners. You look at a new trade and think, my risk rules say 1% is max, but this setup is 99% guaranteed. I'll risk 3% just this once, because this is the big one. The psychological reality is, greed is fueled by the past few wins. Your brain registers those wins as evidence that you are smarter than the market, leading to a temporary state of euphoria and overconfidence. This trigger bypasses your logic and pushes you to break your risk management rules. The moment you risk more than you agreed to, you introduce emotional pressure. Imagine an airplane pilot who decides mid-flight, "I'm usually fly at 30,000 feet, but I feel really confident today, so I'm going to fly at 50,000 feet just this once." It's illogical, reckless, and catastrophic. Your risk rules are your flight plan. Here's the fix: the rule as identity framework. You must make following your rules a non-negotiable part of your trader identity. Here's an actionable tool. When the "just this once" voice whispers, you immediately counter it with, "I am a 1% risk trader. That is who I am. Breaking this rule means I am no longer operating my plan." This shifts the battle from financial risk to personal identity. Protect your identity as a disciplined trader, and the greed-driven urge to oversize will disappear. The third trigger is the most destructive: viewing the market as a teacher. This trigger turns small losses into massive acts of revenge and further fear. The lie is, when the market stops you out, you feel personally insulted. You believe the market is trying to teach you a lesson, and you must stay and fight until you learn it. The psychological reality is, The market is an indifferent, random force. It is not personal. When you assign personal blame to the market, you engage in revenge trading. You feel the sudden, powerful urge to get back what was stolen from you. This leads to impulsive, unplanned entries with oversized positions, often immediately after a loss. This action is pure emotional discharge. Here's the fix: the data collection protocol. You must change your perception of a loss from a personal failure to a data point. Here's an actionable tool. After a trade closes as a loss, immediately ask yourself 2 questions before touching the entry button again. 1. Did I follow my rules? Yes or no? 2. Is this loss statistically valid? Yes, because my edge allows for losses. You then open your journal and label the loss L1. You're collecting data. You are a scientist, not a warrior. The market cannot take revenge on a spreadsheet. By immediately logging the loss, you interrupt the emotional cycle and force your brain back into the role of objective statistician. The final invisible trigger is the internalized story. This is the subtle force that kills your consistency and allows fear and greed to flourish over time. The lie is, you believe your past defines your future. If you had a great week, you are a winning trader. If you had a bad week, you are a bad trader. The psychological reality is, fear and greed are amplified when you tie your self-worth to your P&L. When you internalize a bad trading day as, "I am a bad trader," you compound fear. When you internalize a great day as, "I am untouchable," you invite greed. Your self-worth becomes volatile, making consistency impossible. Here's the fix: separation of self-worth and P&L. You must execute a clean psychological divorce between the operator, you, and the results, the P&L. Here's an actionable tool. At the end of every trading session, whether it was a win or a loss, you write down one of 2 statements. A. I executed my plan perfectly. B. I executed my plan flawed. Your success is measured only by whether you chose A or B. Did you press the button according to the plan? If you chose A, you had a perfect day, regardless of the P&L. This separates the controllable variable, discipline, from the uncontrollable variable, market outcome. Consistent execution leads to consistent results, but you must consistently measure the right thing: your discipline. All right, let's wrap up this deep dive into the 4 invisible psychological triggers. You now know how to combat 1. The illusion of certainty, fixed by any outcome acceptance. 2. The just this once mindset, fixed by rule as identity. 3. The market as a teacher, fixed by data collection protocol. And 4. The internalized story, fixed by separation of self-worth and P&L. Here's a key takeaway. Fear and greed are not problems to be defeated. They are tools to be understood. The market doesn't care about your feelings, but your feelings will determine your results. Stop asking the market for certainty and start demanding discipline from yourself. If this framework is the edge you needed to control your emotions in trading, hit the like button and subscribe. See you in the next one.